system in place to keep us in chains. By show of hands, who else is sick and tired of the same 1%? Trying to keep us small, trying to keep us from getting out. Minimizing the struggles they've caused, saying we're not working hard enough.
We really should stop this fighting. Otherwise, we'll miss the fireworks.
There won't be any fireworks.
And here we go.
And welcome, everybody, to Suck It. I am the great and powerful King of Kings, Prince of all that is awesome. Derek, how the fuck are you? Today is Wednesday, December 2nd of the horrible year that has been 2020. Today's my dad's 66th birthday. So happy birthday to you, Dad. I'll call you before this episode airs so you don't hear it first here, because that would be wrong. But happy birthday to you, Dad. 29 days to the end of the year. Hopefully we'll start seeing some positive stuff happening and good stuff happening, because this year has just been shit. But I digress, because we don't like talking about that. We talk music on this show. We talk acting and comedy and everything else in between. But I don't like to bring you down with the bullshit of the world, because that's not what we're here about. Because tonight, keeping with the theme of the last 2 months of just rocking hard with some indie bands and some indie label bands, you know, we're going to continue to rock your fucking face off. Because tonight, I have a band out of the Bay Area in California that is releasing a new concept album called Zealand. That drops on December 13th. And they just released their new single and video for the song, I can't talk, for the song Public Chefs. So check that out on YouTube, and also it's linked in the bio of the video and on the podcast. So without any further ado, please welcome to the show from the band RLND, Mr. Joe McClune. What's going on, man? How are you?
Hey, Derek, it's going well. You know, just like I said before, staying at home.
Yeah, right.
But,
you know,
we're excited. We've put out the record, and one of the more exciting things we've actually gotten to do while we're at home is work on video stuff. So because now we got all the time in the world at night, especially. So
yeah, I mean, and I've mentioned this 1,005 times. You know, what I love this year, is, you know, about the music scene is, granted, yeah, you guys can't tour. I can't go to listen to music. I can't go interview live bands anymore. I can't do any of that. But what I've noticed is the indie bands, the indie label bands aren't caring about that. They're putting out new music when the big label money bands aren't. And that's allowed you guys to level the playing field a little bit. Because next year, when, you know, Avenged Sevenfold finally releases their album that's ready now, but they refuse to release, you know, their fans are going to be like, hey, but, you know, these other guys last year still released music for us. Where were you? And,
yeah, a ton of records have come out this year.
Yeah, I mean,
there's a lot of really good records.
Oh, my God, it really is. But the big label money bands who can't tour aren't putting it out, but the indie scene is popping, and I have never seen a surgence like this, and it's fantastic.
Yeah, it's been really enjoyable as a listener, and also, you know, I mean, this record was supposed to come out late last year, but it just didn't happen for a variety of reasons. You know, a couple members left the band. We were actually on the tour, kind of looking for a tour in like the springtime, and two new guys had joined the band, and we did, you know, band practices and everything. Basically, I'm up in Portland now, but the rest of the guys are in the Bay Area. But I was flying down once a month for a weekend to do a couple practices, and we were ready to go, and then, you know, all hell broke loose. But yeah, it's kind of interesting to see that a lot of the larger musical acts are almost treating stuff like the movie industry, where they don't want to release it if they can't tour it.
Yeah.
And for us, it sucks, especially because this isn't our bread and butter. We're doing this because we like it, and we love playing out and getting to connect with people on that face-to-face basis, and we just can't.
Yeah.
And we probably won't be able to until at least next fall or something like that, from the way they're talking.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing that I know there's a couple big bands that have booked tours for next year, but I don't know how successful they're going to be or what's going to happen there. But the only thing as far as like the rock world goes, that's been announced for next year is Aftershock in Sacramento.
Right.
But that's pretty much it. I mean, Sonic.
Yeah, and who knows?
Yeah, Sonic Temple hasn't been announced. Like the world's loudest month of May is not going to be. It's going to be very quiet as of right now because there's nothing booked for festivals. Sonic Temple. Houston open air, Chicago open air, Carolina Rebellion, all these ones that happen every May aren't happening this year.
Right. And there's also a whole bunch of the stuff that we were missing already. I had tickets to Roger Waters, and I had tickets to the Rage Against the Machine and RTJ, and a couple other things. I think there was 9 Inch Nails in there as well. All those big shows that I was really pumped to see.
Yeah, I had tickets to Papa Roach, Five Finger, Ice Nine Kills, and I Prevail, and I couldn't go see them. I mean, that was the only one I had tickets to because I bought them in like December, and all of a sudden everything just kind of went away. But
right.
Yeah, I mean, I was pumped for that show. I mean, just for Ice Nine Kills, but that's about it. But yeah, I mean, it's just been a shitty year. I mean, I remember back in the day, when I was a touring guitarist, not being up on stage hurt, and now
sometimes it sucks to watch another band.
It does, but now I'm a stand-up comedian, and it hurts to still, I'll be watching a comedy special that comes out, and it's like I want to do that, or I'll watch a YouTube video of a concert from last year or whatever that just got released or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's like, it just makes me miss music even more, and while it's a good thing that, bands are coming out with at least, these live, movies and stuff like that they did, a year ago, just to kind of stay relevant and give their fans something different. It just makes me miss, going to a live concert even more.
Yeah, it's definitely, and especially when, you're a small band and a lot of your social life is kind of built around the smaller community that in the local areas and even around, the state. It's just kind of, it's almost more of a double damper than it was in the first place.
Oh, absolutely. But so now you've held on to this record since last year. What made you decide to put it out now?
Well, it's actually just logistics. We kind of had a couple smaller labels in mind that we gave it to, and those just straight up didn't pan out, and we didn't want to release it unless we knew we were going to be able to tour. So that was contingent on finding the 2 new guys to play the parts of the guys who left. And once that ended up happening, we were pretty stoked, and we were pursuing the label option, and we ended up talking to Andy from Sell the Heart Records, which is a very very cool label in Berkeley. And he puts out, we're basically an instrumental prog rock band, on the heavier side, but he does stuff all the way from there's a guy named Adam Gennady and Demetrius Antunia who do like, you remember the Neil Young Dead Man soundtrack where he just played guitar over that soundtrack, or over the movie? It's kind of like that, but with spoken word. He does everything from that to straight up punk rock to what we're doing. And so he liked the record and decided we should put it out. So then we were kind of like, well, there's no hurry. We don't need to get ready for it to tour. So we just kind of took our time. We're going to put out hopefully a video for every song. We've got 2 out now, and then there's another one coming with the record release on 2 weeks. The 13th, I guess, is 10 days. So we'll have another one then, and then probably another 3 or 4 after that. So the reason why it came out is because this is when it was ready.
Gotcha.
You know, with the artwork, with the videos, because we didn't want to. Normally, we'd just release it, put out videos whenever we could, and tour it. But given the situation, we decided we should have some content to back it up.
Gotcha. And I just listened to the song, you know, just before we went on the air. You were watching you watch it. But I have heard of a few of your other stuff. I mean, I wasn't like heavily into you guys, but I have heard your guys' stuff. And you know, again, with this year, I have discovered a lot of indie music. It's been fantastic.
Yeah, same here.
So, you know, and I've come across you guys, and, you know, when I had the opportunity to interview, I was like, oh, hell yeah. And, you know, a lot of these bands I've had an opportunity to interview, you know, courtesy of Earshot Media. Shout out to Mike.
Yeah,
you know,
Mike's been great.
It's like, oh, you know, I you know, dove deeper into my Amazon, you know, playlist and dove deeper into my Spotify and like just discovered a bunch of indie bands that I've never heard of before. And then all of a sudden now I'm like having the opportunity to interview them. I'm like, okay, cool. That sounds great. But one of the things that I found interesting about you guys is the fact that you are an instrumental prog rock band. And now you're releasing a concept record. So that intrigues me. How can, and you know, when I listen to it, it obviously make more sense. But how can something instrumental be a concept?
Yeah, and I mean, that's a good question. And so the answer is that it requires a little bit of secondary art. So on the first video we did, there's actually lyrics on the screen. This one, there's a lot of content that kind of makes sense if you know what the deal is. But the thematic content almost comes from our drummer Keith has basically held this list of song titles that he's made up over the years. He just has like a notes on his iPhone that's, you know, pages and pages long of song titles. And we kind of ended up just having these, you know, they're kind of just jokes for the most part. And then we realized they all kind of fit together for this record. The previous record, you know, one of the songs is, I think the title is this Tyrese Gibson, like you're answering the phone? And it's just from, I have no idea how it came about. It was our old guitarist, and he'd answered the phone once at some point at a party by saying that, and people just thought it was hilarious. So those were all jokes, but then we realized, you know, song titles and putting some meaning behind it as an instrumental band might be an interesting idea. And, you know, given the way that politics in the world has been for over the last, you know, 5-10 years, it's a little, you know, things are a lot more politically charged now than they have been in a long time, since people were making protest songs. You know, I mean, the rare exception are people like Rage, and, you know, but in the 60s, 70s, almost everything was politically charged. And there are a few, you know, indie bands, even a couple instrumental bands that have that political edge to them, you know, from the 2010s. Specifically, there's a band called From Monument to Masses.
Yeah, I've heard of them, yeah.
Yeah, and From Monument to Masses was extremely political, and like had everything from their merch to their records just was basically coated with political message. But I think that our concept is not very specifically political. It's more just commentary. And to answer your question in a short manner, instead of just kind of going off, the answer is you have to have some supporting content, from my perspective.
And,
you know,
and the supporting content is going to be the music videos, right?
Yeah, for the most part. Yeah,
Okay.
and also we've done projections at our live shows and stuff like that. So
Okay.
And so it kind of turns out to be a little bit more of an art rock sort of thing, but it can work. And also, there's also the option of not necessarily pushing the concept album message too hard, and just letting people like the music.
Yeah, and absolutely. I mean, because like I said, I mean, up until earlier, I hadn't heard of the new song, but I had heard a couple songs prior, and it was just something I could just sit back and listen to and just relax while I'm
Sure.
doing the dishes and just kind of chill out to it because it's I love prog rock or progressive rock for those of you who don't understand that term. I love that I love that sound because it can get heavy as hell, but at the same time it can be melodic and chill. It's one of those things where it can go anywhere.
Yeah, and that's one of the advantages to being in that kind of band is that we don't really have one of the advantages to not being particularly popular is you don't have to impress anyone with the things you've done before.
yeah, but at the same time, what I was kind of getting at was, with progressive rock, it doesn't have a particular sound attached to it.
Not necessarily, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's very eclectic in what could be considered, progressive rock. I mean, one of the biggest examples of progressive rock over the last 20 years is Coheed and Cambria.
That's true.
And and what you're describing is very, very similar to what they do. However, they use words and comic books, lyrics and comic books to tell their stories, while you're using other stuff to kind of do it. But at the same time, no two Coheed albums sound the same. No,
they don't.
Song goes from from one to one. Their entire concept sounds anywhere similar, and that's what I love about progressive rock.
Right. And they also have, but they at the same time they definitely have this narrative thread throughout each record.
Correct.
And also a couple of the best shows I've ever seen.
Oh my God,
Coheed
yeah.
Shows. Just fantastic. And that's one of the things that it is probably the only real common thread throughout anything that you would term progressive is that the musicianship is usually always there.
Oh my God, yeah. I mean, going back to looking at Claudio. I mean, he's one of the greatest guitarists of today. I mean,
he's a monster.
He's a monster. But I mean, again, that's what I love
about
songwriter.
I mean, he if you listen to the, I think he said a couple times that he writes a song every morning.
Yeah, he does.
He's just fantastic, and also just the supporting band has always been there. I mean, I can't remember their original drummer, but he left to go to be in Dillinger.
Yeah. And
Dillinger is also just one of those bands that is made up of consummate musicians, fantastic musicians.
Yeah, I mean, Dillinger Escape Plan is just fantastic. And they have elements of progressive rock. It's more,
sure.
It's definitely absolutely more metal, but at the same time, it's progressive metal, I guess you could call it.
For sure.
Yeah,
absolutely. And it's all those mathy elements. Because that's kind of where our band fits. Is kind of like in the progressive metal, or heavy prog rock, or math rock, those kinds of elements, and that's kind of where everyone in the band came from originally. So.
Yeah, and again, it gives you more opportunity to be different because there's no real elemental idea behind progressive rock except for being different. It's
that's totally reasonable.
What I like to equate it to was back in the 90s, because there's not very many bands who still have this theme or this genre, but industrial.
Yeah.
There was a lot, there was no one sound to industrial rock. I was never a fan of industrial rock. No offense to Nine Inch Nails and Trent Reznor, but I was never a fan of that sound. But again, there was no, set, this has to be, this is how it has to sound. Like
there are some genres that really kind of cater to being, I guess, more experimental.
Exactly, and that's what I love about it. Like I said, I was never a fan of it, but Trent Reznor is godlike. I mean, as far as his musical, he's a genius.
There's no real refuting that. I mean, I am a fan, but still my favorite. The interesting thing about them is that my favorite records of theirs are, this second one, or I guess the third one is Downward Spiral, but then one of the newest one that came out was really killer as well, and they're completely fucking different.
Yeah, I mean, Downward Spiral is probably the only album I ever really did enjoy. But I mean, that was their kind of their breakout album, and everyone kind of rocked that in the '90s.
Yeah,
But
and that whole the Woodstock performance,
correct, yes,
that was nuts.
yeah, I watched that countless times. That shit was crazy. um, but again, yeah, I mean, it never fit into one style. I mean, you can listen to death metal or you know, deathcore or anything else like that, and it has that certain sound. All the bands sound pretty similar. It's not very eclectic, but like when you
There are a lot of genres that are very defined by the
Very.
the style, and black metal is very specific. There's a lot of tremolo picking and blast beats and stuff like that. And so it's kind of, it's interesting to be, you asked about being instrumental. The fact is we were considering not having this record be instrumental and putting vocals on it. 3 of the 4 people in the band, and then all 4 of us now who are in the band are pretty decent singers, and we just didn't do it with this record. We have a rule where if one person, and this kind of goes with the whole not being limited by genre stuff, if one person doesn't like it in this band, we kill it. So
That's
there's
awesome.
there's no ego that drives it. It's if everyone's stoked on it, then we do it. If someone's iffy, then we try it once or twice. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, we kill it. And for this record, one of the guys who left killed the vocal idea, so we just didn't do it. But on the next one, actually the plan is to not be instrumental anymore.
Well, that's cool. I mean, again, that's your right as a band, especially with that genre. I mean, you can be whatever you want to be. I hate the label of genres. If you're metalcore and you have a soft, power rock song, your fans shit on you. You know what I'm saying? And it sucks.
It's weird.
Us in the metal genre and the rock genre in general, we have blinders on. And if one band steps out of line, like here's a great example. One of my favorite bands of all time is a band called Trivium.
Yeah, I know Troy.
Yeah. So about 5 or 6 years ago, Matt Heafy, the lead singer, blew out his vocal cords, and he could no longer scream or growl. So they released an album called When the World Goes Cold, and the entire album, all he did was sing, and fans shit all over it. They were like, "Well, if you can't scream or growl, why are you even putting out an album? Well, let the guy do something different."
And
he had to
and
learn
that
how to
kind of
completely sing again.
and that kind of response is really a shame, honestly.
It is.
Because and that's, I mean, I made a joke about not having to impress anyone when you don't have a ton of fans. It's actually that limitation from your fan base is really kind of a bummer, because it keeps you from doing what's actually coming out of you.
Yeah. Yeah, and it does suck like that, because I mean, there's so many good vocalists that have blown out their vocal cords.
Yeah.
And not for a lack of singing wrong or anything. It just happens, and they can't come back, and they have to learn how to sing again, and sing differently sometimes in order to control that. Matt Shadows from Avenged Sevenfold had the same issue, and he couldn't growl for a while, and some of this old way he used to scream, he can't do it anymore. That's why he has to backtrack when he go live, but he's still
right. And honestly, a lot of the guys who are guys and girls who are front people in metal bands, the issue of being able to be kind of trained as a vocalist is really difficult, because it changes how you sing.
Yep.
Like Axl had the same voice coach as Pavarotti.
Yeah.
And that's that idea. He's over here belting like falsetto stuff for half of a gun show, but then he can also just kind of do his nasal Axl voice.
Yeah.
But then you think about people who are maybe newer, not being pushed by a major label to do all this stuff that major labels used to push you to do, and they're hurting their voices because they don't really have a choice in the matter, because they're just supposed to do the thing that's going to make them money.
Yeah.
And so it's tough to. There was a point in here somewhere, I swear, but
No, it's fine. Because one of the things I love talking, to bands about. Yeah, I mean, we promoted your album. We promoted the song, but I love talking music theory and
sure,
musical history with
yeah,
with guys like you, because I consider myself a self-proclaimed music historian, and I just I love music, and I can have conversations and talk about shit all day long, and that's just my thing. So I love having these types of conversations because you brought up Axel. I was having a conversation last night with a band out of New York, and we were talking about similar stuff about octave ranges and stuff like that,
yeah.
and we were comparing some of the rock females of today to like Whitney Houston and Mariah Carey,
Yeah.
and one of the things that I for some reason I decided to Google today was if how accurate I was, and I found out today that, at least according to this one source, Axl Rose is credited with having the highest octave range of any singer ever.
I think it's, from what I've heard, it's him, Aretha, and Mike Patton.
See, I saw the Mike Patton thing. I didn't see Aretha on there, but yeah, I mean,
But
to know that Axl, has
yeah.
a better octave range than Mariah Carey or Whitney Houston it's mind-boggling to me.
Well, and sometimes you get surprised by the fact that you know, Guns has always been like kind of like bad boy image, of course, but
Of course.
he's also an absolute pro.
He is.
And that whole band is, but it's interesting because you look at them and then you look at someone, I'm not shitting on him, but Vince Neil can't do what he used to be able to do.
No.
And that's a good band still, but he also didn't do all the training that Axl did. So
Very true.
and so that's kind of on the other hand, another guy who I saw Soundgarden like 6 years ago when they went on that tour with Nine Inch Nails, and Chris Cornell never lost a step.
Oh my God, no, he didn't.
He never lost a single step. The guy was just a monster the whole time.
He was.
And so, it's weird when you find out who is the pro and who's kind of just being in a band.
Yeah, and what I love about Chris Cornell is the fact that he never had a vocal coach. He was self-taught. He self-taught him that range by listening to I heard a story. He would go up into an attic and he would listen to some type of music and all these different people and try to mimic their ranges, and then just came up with his own range on his own or something along those lines, and then just a miraculous voice came out of it, and it's just amazing him.
Right, and he made those changes that you were talking about where his fan base didn't like it at first.
Yeah.
When Super Unknown came out, people were like, what's going on? Because it wasn't just him screaming.
Yeah.
Black Hole Sun's a straight up ballad.
Oh my God. I mean, it's one of the, but at the same time, it's probably one of the greatest songs of the entire 90s.
Without question.
Oh, without question. Definitely in the top 5. I remember, was it 4 or 5 years ago when he passed away?
Has it already been that long?
It's been that long.
God.
It's well, maybe
What a bummer.
3 or 4 years.
Still, I mean,
Yeah, it's been a while. The day he passed away, Sirius XM did a whole dedication to him, and every hour on the hour they were playing whether it's a Soundgarden song or
Audio Slave.
Thank you, or Temple of the Dog. And Black Hole Sun came on, and I'm Going Hungry came on, and those two songs, I mean, above everything else, those songs just show how much of a range and a professional that guy was. I mean, especially with with having 2 powerhouse vocals like him and Eddie Vedder in Temple of the Dog.
Yeah, first
God,
appearance of Eddie Vedder.
For the longest time, I thought Eddie Vedder was like, the king of grunge with his, his sound, but no, Chris Cornell was.
What's Chris Cornell?
Yeah, I was jaded for a long time with grunge music. For me, it was only Pearl Jam because I was never a grunge guy. Because I wasn't a big Nirvana fan and I didn't really like the Pixies or anything else like that. But I loved Pearl Jam.
At the time, I wasn't a Nirvana fan. When it was always me and my buddy, and we were always like Pearl Jam, Nirvana, Pearl Jam, Nirvana. But it turns out now I'll listen to a lot of Nirvana.
Yeah, I still can't. I don't know why. It just was never my thing.
I think it's you need to listen to In Utero.
Oh, I have. I mean, I've listened to it
No, but
countless times.
that's the
yeah.
one that's the one that actually stuck with me. It wasn't the other ones.
Yeah. I mean, it was a great album. Don't get me wrong. And he was definitely, ahead of his time with some of his, lyrics, but it just the musically just never stuck with me. And
That makes sense.
I'm. It sounds horrible because I don't want it to sound like this, but I'm the tragedy that occurred with him.
Yeah.
Thankfully did spawn good things. And what I mean by that is probably, in my opinion, the greatest band of our generation, Foo Fighters.
Well, underrated is that first Foo Fighters album.
Oh my God, yes.
That first Foo Fighters album sounds like it came out today.
It
It's
is.
so good. And
Yeah.
there's, I mean, Dave Grohl's made like a lot of leaps and bounds stylistically in terms of like it's the sound has gotten a lot more polished and it's gotten a lot more like pop radio. But it's still super solid. The band is super solid. But that first album is just still really, really good.
Yeah.
And I actually prefer that first Foo Fighters album to anything that Nirvana ever did.
Oh yeah, absolutely, and so do I. I mean, and then for me, The Color and the Shape was, one of their best albums they ever did. That was their second album.
And rife with instrumentalist controversy. Did you ever hear what happened with that record?
With the Color and the Shape.
Yeah, where he recorded over all the drum parts.
Oh yeah, and then that's when he brought in what's
Taylor
his name?
Hawkins.
Yeah, Taylor. Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny because when that album came out, I was the band that Nate Mendel and William Goldsmith, the original bassist and drummer of Foo Fighters, came from. Is called Sunny Day Real Estate.
Yes.
I was a huge fan of that band, and then they broke up because of whatever. And Dave Grohl was like, Seattle band, I'll take you guys. And they're both killer. William Goldsmith is probably my favorite drummer from that time period. He's just a monster.
Yeah.
I should use another adjective than monster. But that happened. That was kind of wild. But then I got to see them like 3 times on those 2 tours. I saw them at Tibetan Freedom.
Oh really?
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Beastie
good
Boys
show.
and Smashing Pumpkins.
Wow. That's
Killer show.
Killer show. But yeah, I mean that one. Yeah, that I remember that now that you mentioned it. Yeah, that whole Taylor situation, and the fact that, and this just goes to show you how good of a musician and how much respect people have for Dave Grohl, even at that time, just coming from Nirvana, was Taylor was drumming for Alanis Morissette, who was the biggest star at the time, and he said, "Okay, fuck it, I'm out," and went to go play with Dave Grohl with a band that had no real establishment yet.
Yeah.
I mean, and now look at the longevity of that. Just
Not only that, but also that album, Jagged Little Pill, is the people on that record. It's like Flea, Dave Navarro, and Taylor Hawkins.
Yeah,
Fucking insane.
It is honestly one of the quintessential rock albums of the '90s.
It is.
I mean, it really is. Some people shit on it, but it's. I mean, it is on the same level of Joan Jett and the Blackhearts. I mean, it was just different for its time. I mean, it really was. I mean, that type of female empowerment at the time was rare.
I mean, yeah, at least in the mainstream for sure. You still had people like Liz Phair who were, and Tori Amos and PJ Harvey for sure.
Correct.
But those are all names that you wouldn't hear next to Alanis Morissette.
No, even Sarah McLachlan at the time.
Yeah, that's true.
But now today, strong female women run the music industry as far as rock goes, and that's because they've taken over. But give credit to Joan Jett and Sarah McLachlan and
Sure.
Tori Amos and Alanis Morissette to open the doors for people like Maria Brink of In This Moment, or Tatiana from Ginger, or Lizzie Hale from Hailstorm. The list goes on and on and on.
Well, even throughout pop, I mean, even if you get up to Taylor Swift level, like they're musicians. They're all musicians.
Exactly.
And I mean, I prefer a more diverse range of people to listen to, so it's all good.
Yeah, I mean the real musicians of powerful women is what I'm talking about.
For sure.
And not knocking Beyonce, she's the queen bee, but she's not a musician. She's a singer.
You don't think so?
No.
Really?
It takes 75 people to make one song of hers.
Right, and I think that might have more to do with the studio process, though, because the way that the studio process works with major labels is wild.
Correct, but then look at Metallica. It's usually just them and Bob Rock.
Yeah, but let's do some percentages on how good their last 5 albums have been.
Their last album was killer.
Yeah, but
Hardwired, oh my God.
But the snare on Saint Anger.
we ignore Saint Anger.
And also, we saw how functional that relationship was when we watched that movie.
Oh my God, we did.
I still watch that in the background sometimes. That movie is just so amazing.
Yeah, I mean, just having one of my favorite scenes on that movie is Bob Rock handing a microphone to Lars and just yell fuck over and over and over again. Do you remember that part?
It's so good.
It's so good.
I really enjoyed the bass player shootout. It was wild.
That was a great, and for
and that showed you who was the musician.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Because there's some musicians, there's some people who come to play with Metallica and they're just not prepared.
No. The only other person that could have lived up to that would have been Les Claypool.
You think?
Yeah, because I mean, he is amazing on the bass.
Oh no, I was more thinking that there might have been one or two others who could have pulled their weight, but honestly, Trujillo's the obvious choice.
I mean,
he just fits in that band.
He really does, and his background, speaks for itself. I mean, that guy's just amazing.
It's crazy.
Yeah, dude, it's just man, I could sit here and talk music with you for hours, but I know you got to go. So I mean, dude, we got to do this again.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Sure. When you have more time, because we could. I mean, shit. I mean, you and I obviously have a lot of knowledge and passion for this, for the business.
Yeah, I'd love to. We'll have another. We'll probably put out another video like in January, and maybe we'll come and do it again then.
Absolutely, yeah. And definitely have more time to where we can just sit here and shoot the shit like we have been doing. But guys, Joe's a badass. Obviously knows his stuff.
Thank you.
I mean, go check out the new video. Again, link is in the description of the video and the podcast. Check it out. It's badass. If you're, just looking for something that is different, that has that element of, metal, but a little bit of alternative side to it too, this band right here is definitely it. Don't let the instrumental stuff fool you. It's amazing stuff.
I appreciate that. Thanks for having us.
No problem. Like I said, prior to this, listening to a few songs and then listening to the song today, is going to make me want to go back and just listen to everything you guys have done. And
awesome. I'm glad to hear that.
And I can't wait for December 13th to download this and get it playing too.
Right on, Derek.
Yeah, man. Well, Joe, you take care. You have a wonderful rest of your day. And happy holidays, Merry Christmas, whatever it is for you. And hopefully we'll talk again in January when the next one comes out. And we'll see how the new album's doing.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah, man. You have a good one now. I didn't want to play the outro. Wow, that was fucking fun. I love doing these interviews with people. Again, it's not just, hey, let's promote the album. Hey, let's talk about the band. Hey, let's do. No, we literally talk about music and music theory and the evolution, and we compare notes on different genres and singers. It's so much fun. Because it allows me to really kind of dive into, what I enjoy in life, and that's music and art and, the artistry behind music and just everything in between. You guys know I'm a huge comic book nut. And I'm obviously a huge music nut. And yeah, I reference a lot of, bands of today. I constantly reference Coheed and constantly reference, Avenged Sevenfold and Ice Nine Kills and stuff like that. But that's what's relevant today. But then at the same time, we can go back and we can, like I just did with him, and talk, Soundgarden and everything else in between there too, which I can do all day long. And it's fun. It's different. It's what the show has evolved into, and I wouldn't have changed it for the world. My stats have shown that you guys are enjoying this and are really appreciating the direction the show has gone. With these bands that have come out on my show and released their new stuff, you guys have really gravitated toward it, and it's really fucking awesome. So, thank you very much for, being here and listening, but then thank you very much for, listening to these bands that I'm taking an interest in, because they're fucking good. And again, I'll say it again, some of these bigger bands have abandoned us this year, and, understandably so, and that might not always be their decision. It might be the big labels, and, or their management, and, there's stuff going on behind the scenes that we'll never know. And that's okay. But it is what it is. But for now, this year, it's the year of the indie music scene. It's indie rock, and it's the year of the indie band. And if you're not listening to some of these guys like RLND, like Boy Blue, like, Once Revealed, Half Past Two, and all these other bands that I've had on this show, you're missing out. You really, truly are. So open up your Spotify, go back, and look at, all the different bands I've had on this show. And while you're in Spotify, look them up, listen to them, and enjoy, because you're not going to find anything better right now. Like that band last night that I had on Good Things. That fucking album I've listened to twice again today. It's fucking phenomenal. Fucking phenomenal for a 6, track, concept record. Check it out. And then RLND, fantastic. When that album Zealand comes out on December 13th, get that shit. It's fucking great. But yeah, if you guys aren't listening to the indie stuff that's out there right now, you're missing out. Period. All right. Well, guess what? That's our time. That's our Wednesday. I truly fucking appreciate every single one of you guys. Thank you so much for allowing me to live my dream and be able to talk to musicians and talk to you fucking people, every day of the week. Thank you. So, without any further ado, guys, please stay happy, stay healthy, and as always, stay fucking heavy. I will see you tomorrow. Peace.